Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, the following is a collection of news from Patriots. Let's get into the news this late Saturday night. You can hear the left Boyd screeching from a million miles away. Donald Trump is refusing to reply with the legal subpoena. He thinks he's above the law like usual, is the narrative that they're probably pushing. I could pretty much read their minds at this point. But the reality, of course, is quite different. Donald Trump is not refusing to comply with a lawful subpoena. Donald Trump is fighting an unlawful subpoena. He's fighting legal persecution based on no merit, no actual probable cause. And guess what, folks? Donald Trump just won. The man just BTFO Liz Cheney and the rest of these January 6th committee goons, as the January 6th panel is now forced to drop their Trump subpoena. In other words, another massive W for Donald Trump and another L for Liz Cheney as she strikes out once again. The legacy of the January 6th committee continues to be that of absolute abject failure. Alright, folks. So take a look at this headline from the Daily Wire. Yes, I see. Good news, everyone. Lawyer Harmeet Dillon claims victory as January 6th panel drops. Trump's pin-up conservative attorney Harmeet Dillon is celebrating the House January 6th committee withdrawing its subpoena against former President Donald Trump. Victory for the Dillon Law Group was Trump hired after being subpoenaed in October for testimony and documents comes as Dillon is challenging Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel to lead the Republican National Committee, a change that I sincerely hope happens. Harmeet Dillon reminds me a little bit of Kari Lake, an absolute superstar, after my firm filed suit on separation of powers grounds to blog January 6th House Select Committee's illegitimate subpoena to President Trump over his activities while president. The committee waved the white flag and withdrew its subpoena, Dillon said in a tweet on Wednesday. We were confident to victory, she added, in court given precedent and refusal of prior presidents to testify in Congress. The January 6th committee wasted millions for a purely political witch hunt, total abuse of process and power serving no legitimate legislative purpose. Dillon shared a screenshot of a letter signed by the January 6th committee chairman Benny Thompson that announced the withdrawal and offered a brief explanation. As you may know, the Select Committee has concluded its hearings, released its final report, and will very soon reach its end. In light of the imminent end of our investigation, the Select Committee can no longer pursue the specific information covered by the subpoena. The letter said blah, 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 yeah, write a bunch of code from clown Benny Thompson. The real truth is that they got sued and their abuse of power and frankly abusive Congress was never legitimate to begin with. I mean, let's speak about a legitimate subpoena here. Theoretically, Congress can subpoena anyone that they want, but based on common sense, in order to seize or in order to search somebody, in order to request access and documents, you at least have to have probable cause. The January 6th committee never had real probable cause. Let's do a little bit of a flashback here. Flashback: FBI confirms that there was no insurrection on January 6. The Cambridge Dictionary defines insurrection as an organized attempt by a group of people to defeat their government and take control of their country, usually by violence. Well, according to the FBI has found scant evidence that the January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol was a result of an organized plot to overturn the presidential election. According to 4 current and former law enforcement officials, 90 to 95% of these are one-off cases, said former senior law enforcement official with knowledge of the investigation. Then you have 5% maybe of these little militia groups that were more closely organized. But there was no grand scheme with Roger Stone and Alex Jones. And of course, by extension, Donald Trump and all of these people to storm the Capitol and take hostages. The FBI confirmed that there was no insurrection. The FBI essentially debunked the January 6th committee's investigation over a year ago, if they continue to pursue it and pursue this illegitimate subpoena. Not to mention on top of it, that there had already been legal precedents based on grounds of separation of power, which protects the president from having to testify in the first place or release presidential documents. Yet of course, they pursued this subpoena anyways, to add legitimacy to their political kabuki theater January 6th nonsense, but in the end, it all continues to backfire and backfire spectacularly. Of course, They want this January 6 committee to conclude this year promoting their narrative that they found credible evidence and made a criminal referral to the DOJ alleging that Donald Trump and his co-conspirators attempted to overthrow the government in an organized plot, but luckily history is generally written by the winners, and they certainly aren't the winners in this case. They have been defeated. They have been humiliated, embarrassed at every single turn. All the information that they've released, all their biggest bombshells like the Cassidy Hutchinson nonsense, the phony testimony, the falsified tweets and documents and falsified evidence, the endless gaslighting and the straight-up fake news that Adam Schiff has been peddling on MSNBC and CNN. That right there is probably how this January 6 committee garbage is going to be recorded in the history books as one massive sham, as an abuse of power, as frankly, the legal abuse of a sitting president or then sitting president to now former president. It's going to be a legacy of failure, a legacy of loss, embarrassment and humiliation. A Congress so unhinged and deluded, so partisan and filled with vitriolic partisan rage that they sought to criminalize a former president because they didn't like him, because they viewed him as a political threat to their unit party establishment rule. That's how history is going to write this stuff, because frankly, that is the truth and their actions speak for themselves. But of course, as we know, they'll never admit it, just as we saw in that Benny Thompson press release. We're withdrawing the subpoena simply because the January 6 committee is coming to an end. Break off. I mean, seriously, they're never for 1 second going to admit the truth, that they lost, that they were wrong, that they blew this whole thing out of proportion, that they focused on Donald Trump, instead of focusing on getting to the bottom of it, getting to the truth of what really happened. They're going to continue to tell you that there is credible evidence, even though they've produced absolutely zero credible evidence to suggest any of their claims or to tie Donald Trump into any conspiracy or organized plot to overthrow the government. They made their little request, their little referral to the DOJ. Merrick Garland would be an absolute fool to act on it. It's not going to happen. And even then, as they suffer their final legal blow, as the humiliation, the L's continue to pile up or finally pile up with the final inevitable end of the January 6th Kabuki theater sham trial, even then they will probably continue to deny and double down claim that it's an injustice. A sad day in American history, with a former president gets away with his crimes once again, but at least in the end, we know the truth now, don't we? These partisan hacks are losers, and losers will continue to lose. Liz Cheney, Nancy Pelosi, Jamie Raskin, Benny Thompson, Adam Kinzinger, his little January 6 witch hunt, their final attempt to stop Donald Trump from being able to run in 2024 has failed, fallen flat on its face, and they will forever be known and go down in history as partisan hacks and partisan losers. Period. And some significant news: ICE arrests one of El Salvador's most wanted MS-13 suspects in Virginia after 2 deportations. An MS-13 gang suspects listed on El Salvador's most wanted list was arrested in Virginia despite being deported from the United States twice. Immigration and Customs Enforcement announced last week that removal officers arrested at Beth Bonilla Garcia, aged 40, during a raid in Manassas, Virginia on December 1. Bonilla Garcia entered the United States at least twice without being detected and was removed in 2006. And again in 2012. Officials stated, quote, Bonilla Garcia has a history of unlawfully entering the U.S., and this time he apparently did so to escape justice in his own home country. Assistant Removal Operations Field Office Director Eric Rise said it continues, quote, the United States is not a safe haven for the world's criminals. Close quote. El Salvador has issued warrants for Bonilla Garcia for illicit association and aggravated exploitation. Official stated he is still listed on El Salvador's Crime Stoppers website, where he has been wanted since at least 2020. The Central American official said he is a member of the international criminal gang MS-13. Bonilla Garcia is currently in U.S. custody until he is deported to El Salvador. CBP officers seize over $900,000 in methamphetamine at World Trade Bridge. The World Trade International Bridge goes from Texas to Tamaulipas, paths connecting the United States and Mexico over the Rio Grande. The seizure took place when a CBP officer referred a 2018 Kenworth tractor-trailer, manifesting a commercial shipment of furniture, for secondary inspection. After the truck went through a canine and a non-intrusive inspection system exam, CBP officers discovered a total of 98.01 pounds of methamphetamine hidden inside. According to a press release, the narcotics had a street value of $901,293. The drugs were seized by the CBP in Homeland Security investigation. Special agents are now investigating the case. Biden keeps Philip Washington as his choice for FAA commissioner despite his pending criminal corruption case, while airlines in the United States were grounded and thousands of flights were canceled and delayed over the holiday weekend. Biden's pick to win the Federal Aviation Administration continues to be grounded in corruption. In September, Biden's FAA nominee Philip Washington was served a warrant for his actions while at the Los Angeles County Metro Transit Authority. Biden handpicked Washington in July to have the FAA despite the knowledge of multiple ongoing local and federal criminal investigations, which have resulted in setbacks and lengthening of the confirmation process. Washington's history with the Biden administration goes back to 2020, where he led the transit team for transportation, which included the FAA with no aviation experience at the time, to many including members of the Senate committee. Washington's lack of experience presents numerous red flags when considering the experience of former heads of the FAA, who have been CEOs of major airlines and/or have had extensive aviation experience in the military. Aside from Washington's troubling lack of aviation experience, which is vital when you are responsible for the health and safety of millions of passengers, is the public corruption, fraud, abuse and discrimination allegations. Washington was named in the criminal warrants along with then LA County Supervisor Sheila Kuehl and her friend and CEO of Peace Over Violence, Patty Gibbons. The local criminal investigation spending 3 years resulted in the sheriff deputies executing warrants at multiple locations, which included the homes of the supervisors and deputies, seized documents and evidence to support allegations of fraud, abuse and pay-to-play at LA Metro. Congress bans TikTok on all House-issued mobile devices, deems it a security risk. Congress has banned the use of TikTok on all House-issued mobile devices, deeming the Chinese app a security risk. The social media platform parent company ByteDance has ties to the CCP. The ban was announced in a memo on Tuesday that was sent by Catherine L. Spinder, the Chief Administrative Officer of the House. Any lawmaker or stalker that already had the app downloaded was ordered to delete it. Quote, House staff are not allowed to download the TikTok app on any household devices. The memo stated, it continues, quote, if you have the TikTok app on your House mobile device, you will be contacted to remove it. FBI Director Christopher Wray warned members of Congress after the midterm elections that the Chinese government could use TikTok to control users' devices for influence or espionage purposes. A bipartisan group of lawmakers is also moving to try and ban TikTok in the United States altogether. The Averting the National Threat of Internet Intelligence, Oppressive Censorship and Influence and Algorithmic Learning by the Chinese Communist Party Act, or the Anti-Social CCP Act, aims to, quote, protect Americans from the threat posed by foreign adversaries using current or potential future social media companies that those foreign adversaries control to surveil Americans, learn sensitive data about Americans, or spread influence campaigns, propaganda and censorship. President Donald Trump had attempted to ban TikTok while he was in office in 2020, but was blocked. Many, including Democrats, have now admitted that he was in fact right. Democrats Senator Mark Warner, who chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee, admitted Trump was right. Quote, as painful as it is for me to say, if Donald Trump was right, we could have taken action then. That would have been a heck of a lot easier than trying to take action in November of 2022. Biden economy sent retirement funds spiraling, prompting mass bailouts for union pensions. U.S. economy in June witnessed a major market fall that saw the erasure of roughly $3 trillion from American retirement accounts. Numerous pension funds have also reported substantial losses. The Louisiana Firefighters Retirement System, for example, reported a $247.4 million drop in fiscal year 2022. Moreover, the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund faces likely financial difficulties due to the collapse of cryptocurrency FTX, in which it had heavily invested. Further, a 2022 audit of local municipal pension funds in Pennsylvania discovered cases of mismanagement, with individuals being overpaid and funds overfunded. Such examples are far from isolated, however, and analysts have suggested a plethora of pension funds may be inordinately ill-prepared to handle both existing market volatility and prospective rocky 2023 cash holdings. That U.S. government pension funds, for example, currently stand lower than they did during the 2008 financial crisis. According to the Wall Street Journal, at present cash holdings comprise 1.9% of state and local government pension funds and only 1.7% at corporate funds. The 15-year average for public funds was 2.45%, while corporate funds average 2.07%. Liquid assets provide a cushion for pension funds and allow their managers a degree of flexibility in the event of adverse market conditions. Low liquid could potentially leave pension fund managers hogtied should the market volatility persist, a scenario that has already come to fruition for many ill-managed retirement funds. Accordingly, the Biden administration stepped in to rescue a multitude of pensions via the Public Benefit Guaranty Corporation. The PBGC is a public corporation that works to provide security to pension plans. It also is the vehicle by which the government may provide a bailout to an ill-managed fund. Many of these bailouts come via the Special Finance Assistance Program created in the 2021 American Rescue Plan. A bailout included $36 billion, making it the largest private sector pension bailout in United States history. The fund was projected to run out of money in 2025. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button to watch the next episode. Goodbye. God bless.